Lesson 15 of U.S. history is about the New England colonies. In the previous lessons, we've been looking down here at the southern colonies, Jamestown, Maryland, North and South Carolina, and Georgia. Now we're going to look at the New England colonies, and particularly today, the voyage of the Pilgrims and of the Puritans, which is something most people know a lot about, as it's a big part of our American culture, the story of the first Thanksgiving and the first Pilgrims coming to America. In many ways, the Pilgrims, even though they did not come quite as early as the people of Jamestown and the southern colonies, their story is more is a bigger part of American culture because the story is told over and over again along with the Thanksgiving holiday. But there are some misconceptions about the story, and we're going to try to tell more of the whole truth today in the story of the Pilgrims and Puritans. In England, you had to be part of what's called the Church of England, or the Anglican Church, which was ran by the king or the queen. Everyone was supposed to be the same religion. However, some people did not agree with that religion, so they would protest against it, or they would want to change it. People that wanted to change the Anglican Church were called Puritans. They wanted to reform the church and purify the church. And then people who want to completely separate from the Church of England were called Pilgrims. They were wanting to leave, start their own church, separate. They were called separatists. And during the late 1500s, early 1600s, Puritans and Pilgrims were at times relatively powerful within the parliament and system in England. However, when they lost their power, they became persecuted and mistreated, and they had to look for solutions to their problems where they could practice the religion they wanted to practice. So they decided to leave England. At first they went to Holland, but they didn't really like Holland. They didn't feel like they fit in with the culture. They want their children to have an English background. So they went back to England, and then in the second trip they decided to load up a boat and start a colony in the New World, preferably in what was Northern Virginia, which today would be like Southern New York. And the ship was called the Mayflower, as you know, as many of you probably know. And here's that classic, happy, healthy, wonderful Pilgrims. But the truth of the matter is, the Pilgrims faced many challenges, and there was a lot of suffering and a lot of violence in the early years as the Pilgrims settled in Massachusetts. And so we're going to try to tell the whole story with this over the next few days. Here's the Mayflower, simple caravel, pretty small boat they took over, and they had a rough trip. People were suffering on the boat. It took longer than expected, and they got off course. They were supposed to land farther south near Virginia in the better, more fertile areas, but they landed up in Massachusetts, which was not ideal because the soil's not great, and of course the winters are much colder. They landed in November in Massachusetts in what we call Plymouth Rock. They named it that, of course, and you can imagine the feeling that they must have been feeling in this gray November day. Landed, it's cold, it's wet, it's unknown. They are thousands of miles from home. It had to be a scary feeling for them, but they had a lot of faith in their God and in their religion, and they were willing to do whatever it takes to start the church that they wanted and live the lifestyle that they wanted. That first winter, as we kind of look at that, it was very rough. They died. Half of them died. They didn't have enough food. They died of disease and freezing. So a lot of the people who were weaker did not make it through the first winter, but they didn't go home. They kept with it and kept after it. We have to give them a lot of credit for their persistence and determination with that. Perhaps, we talk a lot about Thanksgiving. We'll talk about that in the next lesson. But perhaps their greatest contribution the Pilgrims gave us was the Mayflower Compact. And this is a legal contract in which the Pilgrims agreed that they were not just going to make laws that would be fair and preferable for the ruling class, the king, the leaders, the church council, whoever was in charge. But instead, they were going to make laws that would be fair and protect the common good of all people. That's kind of a shocking idea in the 1600s, as most rules were made and laws were made to protect the king, other ruling classes, the rich, but not the Pilgrims. They want everyone to be equal, and they want everyone to be equally protected under the law. And you know, that's a very American idea right from the beginning, and an idea that will later inspire our Constitution and Declaration of Independence and the very foundation of our country. So we have to give the Pilgrims a lot of credit for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we remember the Pilgrims so much, because of their thought of that people should be treated fairly and equally. We'll talk more about that in the Thanksgiving tomorrow in the next lesson. But I hope this lesson review was helpful for you. Thanks.